this is James from Drone Deer Services. It's been a while, but here we are again in the upper Midwest. I call this buck the four-wheel drive buck. Watch him go over this log, it's pretty cool. We're just going to crank it right over, lock those front hubs, get on over and get down in that like small area there. So, classic bedding, he gets there, does the neck tilt, he's back home. I believe this is his bedding area. He's moving along here, browsing. But this is a nice deer, kind of a taller 8 to 10 point. And you're going to see some fine whitetail bucks on this particular mission. I put together 3 flights in this area. For obvious reasons, you'll learn that I'm not going to share much more about the area than that, but I wanted to get the video out so folks could just kind of see some antler growth. Spent some time in Ohio, big bucks in Ohio, big bucks in the Midwest. That's it. I mean, these are all right here. This entire video is public land, and that's pretty cool. So here we are. Same thing, IR. Find this wide CLYDE buck. Not sure of the point count, but he has either drop tines or kickers going out the back, which is pretty cool. But this is a wide deer, plus 20, plus 150 inches probably. So this would be most likely a Boone and Crockett buck on this particular property. Difficult to get to because he's kind of back where he needs to be, and I think he has everything that he needs. Not a lot of good trees in this area. It's probably going to have to be a ambush point from the ground when he's moving from his bed to his food, but I don't think he moves very far for food. There are bean fields relatively close to these deer, and they're not. Very few of them are in the beans. So whatever they're finding here now, whether it's safe and nutritious or safe and the best forage for them right now, I'm not sure. But this is a fine specimen. Again, this is all public ground, but it's going to be a challenge to hunt. And I watched this buck for a long time. I filmed this 2 nights ago. I did some more filming tonight and ran into this guy. And I just like watching him. It's just he's a fine specimen of a whitetail deer, very symmetrical. It's a very nice rack. I'm not sure what's going on with the coat, whether we're shifted already into the fall, whether we're in a transition time, not sure. But this is a very nice deer. And I don't know if the group could help me understand whether those are drop tines, kickers, whatever they are. We're going to see some deer later on, or maybe I'll do a shorter video. There's a deer in this area that has some, on the right side, he's got 3 split brows, and then these things that kind of go down and tuck behind his ears. It's a deer with a lot of character, but I'm not sure what's going on with that guy. But certainly something to pursue for the 2023 season. So here's kind of like a thermal look at these deer. I call this the TRIPLE+BROW right buck. So this is the deer I was talking about. There's triple brow tines on the right hand side. And in the video tonight that I filmed, there's a bunch of stuff kind of growing beneath that big monster base on the right. So Tonight, I think I counted like 14 points on this deer, which is pretty cool. You can kind of see them here, but I did a freeze frame, but they're kind of, two extra or three extra are tucked under like that ear. And in fact, I think it forces that ear down unnaturally. But this is kind of a um, taller rack buck with some pretty nice character on the right hand side. The buck on the wall that I have, I call him the Sandy Koufax buck. He's got a lot of stuff on the left hand side. It would be cool to have like matching, right left deer here. But not again. There's beans. There are beans, and there's corn close, and these deer are not there. They're in a very particular space. There's water available. There's whatever this random or different food is here, and that the previous deer and this deer are relatively close together on this parcel, and they've been around for a while, so they're kind of doing things right. This is a pretty nice deer here. I like the character on the right hand side. Not symmetrical, not a high scorer, but certainly a cool buck. So pivot around again, find another hot spot in the IR mode. I just, want to let everybody know there are small deer in this area. I would guess that this would be, this deer was born last year and is doing quite well, as far as the deer are concerned here. Might be a 2-year-old, but, I'm not really sure. I don't know enough about this area to, kind of judge it. And when they're smaller like this, it's hard to, when they transition to a larger deer, it's more difficult to like separate them out. Again, get up in the air, do an IR check. 2 more deer here. And here we have the hubby right, I call him, walking through this probably 4 foot tall grass. I have on here let them grow, but I don't know. I don't know. I would probably do what I needed to do on this particular deer here. This is kind of a heavy antlered deer. So it's kind of on the edge. It's probably like number 3 in this area. And then we have 2 nice bucks here. They're working across that same type of vegetation. I've done a lot of research lately on the foraging, for humans, but I imagine, and I've kind of decided that the foraging stuff is good for the deer too. So burdock, which is a biennial plant, gives a lot of protein to the deer. But here are deer foraging in the upper Midwest and this various whatever this vegetation is. I have a friend that's like a plant guy. Maybe he can help me out. Anyway, so we pivot around. We're going to call this bedded buck 01. You're going to find in this video we have a lot of bedded bucks. So they're very comfortable in this area. Nice rack. Very uniform, very, symmetrical. 4 or 5 points on both sides. He's tucked in here, kind of a nice body. But for this area, this deer is probably wait a couple of years to go after him. I think he's sleeping very soundly. Not a lot of movement on that deer. So we get back up, we go IR, just to show you, yes, there are doe in this area. Not many. There are more bucks than doe that I've seen, and there's just a doe in the area. I thought the group would probably like that. Get back up, go IR again, come here on this deer, and kind of a twin to the previous bedded buck. So this is bedded buck 02. So this is number 2 bedded buck. Looks very similar, but if you look at the vegetation, you'll find he's in different vegetation. So this is bedded buck number 2. I think we get up to 8 in 22 minutes, which is pretty cool. Just flying around mid-August in the upper Midwest. Nice thick, main beams. Not as thick as the wide CLYDE buck, but the main beams are pretty cool. And just chewing the cud kind of a thing. Nice big body on this deer. The deer in this area are very healthy. So that's him in IR mode. Swing and go out. Pick up another deer in IR mode. We're going to call this one bedded buck number 3. This one's pretty cool. It looks like an elk. So the main body is the light color, the neck and the head, and kind of a ridge down the back. It's the dark color. This does look like an elk. It's pretty cool. He's bedded, comfortable, nice rack, very symmetrical again. A lot of good genetics in this area. Super good genetics for a public site. But this deer was pretty cool. Like I said, he looked like an elk to me. Just the color of the hide. Light and then dark, and then he spins his head around and does a little itching. And when they itch, I mean, these brows have that character with that like corkscrew deal. I think that's pretty cool. And then there's kind of some wide main beams between G2 and G3 there on that deer. Get up back again, find more hot spots. We're going to process these as many as we can on this particular mission. So here's, I call this the stepping out buck. This deer is just moving into the wind. This kind of gives me an idea how, kind of how they move through this area. I'd like to try a spot and stalk and be successful. It's probably on my bucket list. So I'm going to give this a shot. Get back up again, more IR, and we're going to call this the big body. So this it's just a big body deer, not necessarily the biggest rack in this parcel, but a nice big body. I've seen a lot of deer this year with the Mavic 3T. I'm a pretty good judge of body size, but this is a very healthy deer, and this deer is, again, he's feeding on something very particular. And you can see this one's a little bit taller. Might be number 4 on the list, but certainly something we could do something about. Here's a deer that's actually in the beans. This deer has thick main beams. These beans have a lot of weed in them. Weeds. I'm not sure that the weed, I'll have that checked out by my farmer friend, but the brow tines aren't super duper, but this is still a nice deer, 8+ buck, moving through the beans and foraging along there. You'll find at this time of year here, the pod is formed on the soybeans, but the actual bean within the pod isn't. Hasn't amounted to much, and that's that will come on now. Had some significant rain in the Midwest recently, and so the crops are doing pretty well. So again, get back up in the air, do an IR check. Here we have bedded buck number 4. Couldn't get the best angle coming from here. I do know this is a buck. He's bedded. He's kind of in that same type of vegetation. In the IR mode, he's super easy to see. Generally, that's what happens in the IR mode. And so we leave him and we go up and process the buck above him, which is on the move. Call him the taller ready 10. It's a 10-point, nice deer. Big, thick main beams. The actual individual points, all of them. I mean, the brow tines aren't super big, but they're not real tall. He's also doing a little maintenance on that tail. Maybe some tick or bothering him. So I guess my plug for make sure your You have some kind of tick prevention on your dogs. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. I mean, it can take a couple hunting seasons out of you at least if you get that Lyme disease. So think about that. The Boomer Outdoorsman is a big tick preventative guy. So here we go. We process more IR deer. This would be bedded bucks 5 and 6. Nice deer, 8 points, very symmetrical. You'll find these deer are not laying very far apart. In fact, I'm going to zoom out a little bit and we'll be able to see these two deer in the same frame, which is pretty cool. Maybe they're, brothers from a couple of years ago. And that's what I would call them in this area from what I'm seeing in antlers. These two 8 or 9 points deer are probably, out of the same birth year. So as we do, we get back up. There's a hot spot behind these two deer, kind of materializes. And this is kind of another tall deer, kind of on the move, kind of alert. Not sure what's going on. There's a lot of coyotes in this area. I do have those on video as well. But, maybe alerted on that deer. Again, headed into the wind, and that deer would be upwind of him. And so this deer just got out of his bed. You can kind of see the hide is the gray with the darker neck. Pretty cool. Well worn bed. He's got a shade tree there. Little hide maintenance there. Just another example of a buck, not necessarily on this year's list, but certainly good for future. So we do a little spin around and look for hot spots. So here we go, and we're going to call this bedded buck number 7. Very well worn bed. We'll get in here close. Difference was on this deer, smaller antler, a bigger body, but his face was into the wind. Usually they have the wind coming over their back. So that was a little bit different on this particular buck, but a well-worn bed. Just a deer moving across the field here. We're going to call him on a mission buck. I'm running out of light. It's getting dark, so the the clarity of the video is going to kind of suffer. I did, like I said, I flew today. I focused on wide CLYDE and the deer that has a bunch of junk on the right-hand side. Earlier in the day, I did find them and got a lot of good footage on those deer. But here's another deer moving, into the wind. Scent checking here. Again, there's a coyote pressure thing. Deer in like another part of the vegetation. Nice deer. He would be on the list. Wide. Kind of by himself. This is kind of a wide and not as tall as the wide CLYDE deer, but this is certainly a deer worth going after. Big body. I remember those deer we pulled out last year. They were heavy coming across the field. Processing more. Here's 2 more deer just hanging out. Kind of going through these pretty fast now as I'm losing light. Nothing of huge significance here other than, they're not in the beans. They're out there browsing in something. I'm going to do a recon mission actually on the ground, do a dry run, spot and stalk on what I would call a lesser deer and see what we can do. Get back in the air, do some processing. And yes, this would be what I would call a late rut fawn from last year. The spots are very distinct still. A lot of fawns I'm seeing now, they're very faded out. So I would call this, a deer that got kind of at the end, of a doe that got missed or just wasn't mature enough at the beginning, but that then became mature towards the end. Continue to fly. Not a bad deer here. There's a big doe, we'll call her the MOMMA, taking a break in the proximity of the fawn. And you can see here as it gets darker, we have less light. The camera doesn't focus as well. That's kind of how we are here. Coming over here, the biggest buck of the mission, kind of snuck up on me. Huge body, huge wide rack. I'll be looking for him, but I'm losing light. So this is a very nice deer. You know, maybe the same year class as wide CLYDE. Not sure, but for some reason there's a lot of nutrition in this area. So good antler growth. So these would be, more symmetrical in the kickers coming out here. I began to think it might have been the wide CLYDE buck, but I wasn't sure. So more news to come on this deer, but just a heavy rack. Very healthy. I mean, not worried about him not making it through. Get up in the air. This is what I can consider the tallest rack of the mission. This deer was kind of moving along a deer trail, foraging. This is a nice taller rack. See, this is very deep and a lot of trip hazards in this stuff. And you can see that deer lifted up his foot and kind of got it over the stuff that kind of grabs your ankle. Not sure what it is. It's kind of viney, but hope you'd enjoy this. Drone Deer Services, we're here to help. Please contact us this year if you need our help at all. Anything. We'll help you out. We got a bunch of hunters that have been hunting for a while, and we wanna pass it on. So thank you very much, and please consider liking and subscribing. Over and out.